Clubhouse.
This is Stef.
And this is Paul on my last week before Sheila's grand return. Everybody get your drum roll started.
Right? We could all join together. We don't need to X you out just yet.
I mean, if you'll have me, I'll stick around for as long as I'm welcome on the ranch.
I say, why not?
We'll get Sheila's vote, but it sounds like it's 2 to 1.
2 to 1, right? She's outnumbered.
All right, so this is for the 10th episode of the 5th season, or the second episode of the second part of the 5th season of Yellowstone.
That made no sense.
It doesn't.
Just episode 10.
Yeah, the title of this one is called The Apocalypse of Change.
Nice.
And as a reminder, this is not going to be a recap. We're going to assume that you've seen the episode, and so we'll only be talking about spoilers without any warning beyond this. After I make this quick admission that in the previous podcast, I believe I referred to the second timeline as 6 months ago, when in fact it was only 6 weeks ago.
How could you?
I know. I got confused.
Right.
I got just swept up in the emotion.
It's been 2 years, so I think 6 months ago, 2 years,
Right.
It's 6 weeks, it's all.
It doesn't seem to really, so far the timing hasn't seemed to matter. Like you mentioned last week, that absence of what in the heck is happening with Jamie, what in the heck is happening with John. It's all cowboy stuff.
I felt like this episode, the timing was a little bit more confusing.
You think?
In terms of the scenes, a couple of them, I was like, am I watching present day or am I watching... The biggest one for me was when Kayce came back to Monica and Tate, and it had been a day or the next day, because he was like, what does Tate know?
What I assumed was that he spent the night at the main house.
But then it's like, okay, well, we're back to present day. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was a little more confusing, but also, like you said, doesn't seem to be that big of a deal whether
Doesn't seem to
we're
matter.
in the present day or 6 weeks ago.
So what's your first impression of the Apocalypse of Change?
It didn't deliver anything super apocalyptic, right?
Not really, no.
Yeah.
Plot-wise, this was about 5 seconds of moving the story actually forward a little bit, and then a lot of character stuff.
Right.
Which is fine, which is good, but like we mentioned earlier, there's only 6 episodes in this part 2 of season 5.
Right.
So
we want to cover some ground, like give us some information.
Yeah.
We don't want to just touch base for half a day or whatever it's been, It didn't cover a lot of ground, like you said. So
especially when they show, we'll talk about it later, but especially when they show the preview for next week and they're like kicking down doors and people are crying. I mean,
how did we get there?
Show us that.
Over the years, Sheila and I have said a few times, like, oh, this episode didn't have a lot in it, or it was kind of slow. But in true Taylor fashion, when you really dig in, there are bits and pieces there that he's orchestrated that are interesting. So, I mean, I think if you just watched it one time and sort of recapped it, you'd be like, it was kind of boring. But like we do, when we dig in and we find lines here or there, information, it can be... a little more substantial, but overall it was kind of a slow episode.
Yeah. I mean, we will get into the big questions.
Yeah.
First, I want to play this clip.
I hope you donated your body to science so doctors can study how big a bitch you are.
Well, I didn't. Close the fucking door.
What did you think of that little exchange with Beth and Summer?
We really did kind of forget about Summer.
Yeah.
Right? We forgot she was there. And so I thought it was kind of funny that they literally said, oh, we forgot about you. That was like one of the lines in the script. It was like, oh, yeah, you're still here. So I don't know. I thought it was a convenient exit for her. Like, we don't have anything else to say about you and your storyline's dead. So like, okay, bye.
It's better than just not writing anything, but it's almost not writing anything.
It's pretty much like, oh, yeah, you're still here. Why? Leave.
Now, Caroline, my wife and partner on Clubhouse, she had this theory that the way that Beth painted John's house arrest, I'm giving Steph air quotes of house arrest, throws a lot of shade on John in a way that makes you think it's Taylor kind of shitting on Kevin Costner. Like it's just a lecherous old guy that wanted a younger woman around that he could fool around with. Now that's casting a lot of aspersions here. I'm not saying anything. Paul Daly's not saying anything about Kevin Costner and his appetites for anything at all. It was just a theory, just because it was so dismissive of her own dad, which is sort of out of character for Beth.
But didn't she say that all along? I don't know why he lied about her being on house arrest, basically. It just...
Or is it just one of those things they fudged? Like maybe it was actually what he said it was originally, but when Kevin left, then Taylor changed it to this...
Don't you read your own court documents?
Yeah. Clemency with an asterisk.
Right. Yeah. It was sort of a convenient exit for her, but...
Maybe she'll have another role to play. I don't know. She's actually married to somebody.
I thought it was a producer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I don't know. I think it's like she kind of got her line or her few scenes, her little story plot. And then now that time has passed, it's like, oh, yeah, you're good.
Their scene, though, was like a battle of who's going to get the last line.
It reminded me of Sisters, right? Like, I mean, I grew up with all sisters, and it's a lot of this like, well, okay, well, you're ugly, your hair's stupid, you know? So it's like, it just reminded me, I hope you die and your body is donated to science. Well, it's not, you know? So it's just very catty, like sister-like. Grown women never do that, Paul. We never act like that.
No.
Just so you know.
No, I do have some questions about Beth and grown women when we get to Jamie's portion of the day. But before we do, I wanted to talk about a big theme that has been playing out in this season so far, which is kind of this Dutton's / the ranch versus the modern age.
Right.
Last week, we had a lot of the cowboys in particular saying like, our way of life is dying. Take a look around. Walker has been very negative pretty much the whole time. But you know, he's just like I told you, look around, curl up and die. That's what Texas is.
Curl up and die. Nice.
But this week we get Beth coming to Texas.
Right.
She gets kind of the red carpet treatment from a state trooper because her husband's a cattleman.
I know, right? Thank you for his service.
Right. And then at the speakeasy with the other cattlemen, it's not tourists.
Yeah.
And that's been a big, heavy, underlined aspect of the Montana location of the Yellowstone Ranch is this invasion of tourists.
Right.
You know, and and they're pointing out in these towns is nobody's coming to these towns.
Nobody's visiting.
Right. And meanwhile, the 4-6 is thriving. They have their own vodka and other products, I'm sure. We're ranching in the wrong state. Is I think what she said. And later on, we see Rip tell Summer about John Deere and that maybe he'll end up having to adapt as well. This is like crazy talk coming out of Rip's mouth.
I think you're right. I think this is a big shift in sort of the storyline. It makes a lot of sense in terms of the future of Rip and Beth. It makes a lot of sense in terms of the future of the Dutton Ranch and what their legacy actually holds. Maybe it is the cattle and the value in that, right? There's a lot of value in the cattle. There's a lot of value in the horses that they own. And it's not a big fight here in Texas to have that because everybody wants your horse and your cattle around. We like them. So I think you're right. I think that's where we're going to see this shift in terms of ending the storyline and wrapping everything up. It would make a lot of sense. It would make a very good sort of ending because Rip's not going to not be a cowboy.
Right.
He's not going to sell. They're not going to sell the Yellowstone. He's going to go into car salesman.
Night classes.
Like, yeah, it's not. That's just not how it's going to work. So these cowboys have moved to Texas. It makes a lot of sense for them there. They can do what they love and do what they are meant to do, and it's respected. And no one's trying to kill you in Texas, except for the rattlesnakes.
Right.
But I think it makes a lot of sense for the storyline, and I think could be a really good way to wrap up this whole series.
And here's kind of a way to think of it as a potential bookend is in the series 1883, the story of James Dutton taking his family to Montana. He starts in Hell's Half Acre, which is Fort Worth, Texas.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
So that's where he starts with the wagon train, goes to Montana, starts the ranch.
That would be amazing.
Makes an agreement with the local tribe that in, I forget what he said, something like 7 generations, the land would wind up back with them. People have done a lot of like genealogy to see if Tate is that 7th generation or not. no, don't kill me if it's 8. You know, it's
Yeah,
something
right.
like that. It's some,
The idea is there, right?
Right. The number is that it would go back. And I mean, it's kind of all lining up, and for it to end up back in Texas.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, it wasn't that James was trying to escape Texas. It was that was where the wagon train started. He actually had come west from further east in order to start with that wagon train. So it wasn't about leaving
Texas,
No.
right? Yeah.
So anyway,
That would be interesting.
kind of a bookend to that story. Okay, so you mentioned the snakes.
Yeah.
In a little way, that just seems like, well, what did that have to do with anything? But I wonder if there was like some symbolism there, some foreshadowing. Like, is it that there's snakes in Texas, or a snake is, for the biblically minded, a very loaded symbol for duplicity and trouble down the road.
That's true.
But there's also, just the very mundane, they bite, they poison you, they kill you.
It's not good.
That kind of stuff.
I didn't take it as a deeper meaning or some symbolism into the trouble that lies in Texas. Like we discussed last episode, it's a completely different world.
They're fish out of water.
Yeah, and that they don't know to look for prairie dog towns.
Right.
I wouldn't know that.
Yeah.
And don't sleep on snakes. So I think we have to kind of touch base with the Cowboys every episode, or else, we'd kind
Easy
of
to lose track
miss
of.
that.
Yeah.
So I saw it as that. It's just kind of a way to check in. It's like, man, they're having so much fun out in the middle of nowhere with these snakes, and they're like, oh gosh. And it's funny, like you mentioned, Ryan saying, you just come out and move spots and it looks the same as the other and you're just going to die here.
Yeah.
Like, wow. So I don't know. I saw it as that it's just part of this transition phase that they're going through.
Yeah. Even if I'm making something out of nothing, it does continue to demonstrate that even though it, in a story sense, moving the Dutton enterprise to Texas makes sense, the Cowboys aren't aware of that. They're just living their life.
Right. They're just doing their job.
Right. And it sucks right now that they're getting dealt with, having to deal with snakes. Their horses are getting bit. After another cowboy said, oh, that's no big deal with the horses. No, actually that horse is going to need, what did he say, like a month of treatment?
2 or 3 weeks. Yeah, he said a few weeks.
A few
and
weeks.
so, that's a big deal to be down one horse when you only have 5 or whatever. So it's just inconvenient. They're struggling to, every little thing is going to matter here. So losing a horse for a few weeks is a big deal. And they're having to sort of negotiate, like, I'll give you hay and we'll work for this. And I feel like they're just a little bit on the struggle bus, but they're making it.
If they keep showing just cowboys in that 6-week time frame, I mean, yeah, they show Kayce too, but there's only so much, mopping the new house that we're going to be entertained by. Just as a viewer, just needing to know what's happening in the story, the way they keep ignoring Jamie and John is starting to feel more obvious in that time frame. So it's like they make it really slow in those sections.
Yeah, it did. And it was a lot more time spent on rattlesnakes than we really needed.
Yeah.
I just didn't feel like it didn't add a whole bunch of comic relief. It didn't add a whole lot to the episode. So I feel like you can kind of touch base with them and move on. It didn't need to be quite that extensive.
The other part of the 6-week ago time frame was the Beth visiting and all that. And we'll cover that because since this episode was so thin on plot, we decided to go and cover what happened with the characters, because that seemed to be where the writers were focusing on, was developing those characters since this was a slow
because the timeline didn't seem to really matter on this episode. So
in the murder plot, I think we moved ahead one more day.
Right.
Caroline and I wanted to bring up, and we don't know what to make of this, but the way that the Cowboys for a second week in a row hit the politically correct way to call somebody stupid point. They can write whatever they want. But in our house, we don't use the R word.
I feel the exact same way. I didn't even want to mention it last week because it bothered me. But it was like
now it's 2 weeks in a row.
People use that word.
They do.
People say stupid. People say the R word. I hate that word. And stupid is a bad word in my house. I've got little kids. Little meaning they're preteens.
Yeah.
But stupid is a bad word. We don't say that. I do not call people stupid. It's just not okay. So 1 week, okay, great. Thanks for that joke. Second week in a row, I'm like, really? It's just not funny. I don't think it's funny. As it's a sticking point for me, I notice how much people do say that word. In jest, I don't think they mean it maliciously, but it comes out. People are just talking.
Yeah.
about a situation or whatever, and they use that R word. And I'm like, stop. Oh my gosh. And I actually have, if it's a close friend, I will say, hey, can you please just not use that word? It just doesn't sit well with us. And so I agree. I don't think it's a good joke. I don't think it's funny. And I didn't really like it being there. But I think you and I and Caroline, we have a little bit more of a sticking point with it, just for our life situations. I have a special needs child. And so I don't like that word.
Yeah, we don't either. We don't use it. And whenever we hear it come up, it stands out. It's almost like I don't know. I don't want to say something too much about it, but it's just 2 weeks in a row. It almost feels like we've mentioned, the 6 week ago time frame feels like they're padding it. They're pouring stuff into it to make it fill more time in the episode. So it almost feels like the sort of thing that they should have cut because it was just the same joke 2 weeks in a row. You know,
it didn't need to be there. I don't know.
Come on, you're better than this. Just don't say it.
Right. I agree.
All right. So I only have like 4 big characters who had big stories this week. And so the other like supporting characters kind of branch off of them.
Right.
We have Rip, Beth, Kayce, and Jamie. Is there any one of them that you'd like to start with?
Let's start with Rip. Like I said a few minutes ago, I'm a little confused on the timeline because we jumped around a little bit, but I mentioned last week I kind of wanted to see him mourn, right? I wanted to see, like, did we miss the funeral? Did he move on from that? Are we past that? I'm a little unsure. And so whenever we see him sort of consoling Carter, but also not really being that sad and be like, well, it is what it is, kind of feeling about it, I wanted a little bit more, or I wanted to know, did we move past that? And we're going to come back to it later.
With the timeline, it's like cheating to use the preview for next week.
Right.
Because the episode should stand on its own for letting you know this stuff. But since we did see the preview, we can see that Kayce is standing with a medical examiner doing a post-mortem with them.
So it's
we can assume that's John.
Yeah.
Maybe we're supposed to assume that's John because that's how previews work. But since this is only day 2.
Is it? It's like...
Yeah. So then, no funeral yet.
Right. But he made it back to Texas in less than a day.
Dude, in
a
truck.
So he made it back to Montana, but you know what I meant. So that's where I was like, okay, he made it back. He's already working. And now he's like, come on, Carter, get out of bed. What's the big deal? I don't know. I was missing a little something in terms of Rip addressing that John died. I mean, this is a huge person in his life, not only for work, but personally. So I don't know. I kind of needed a little bit more connection there.
Maybe we got some baby steps, though.
Yeah.
Because if we think of Rip as just the local leg breaker for John at the beginning of season 1.
Which is what he was, yeah.
Right.
He had no...
You want to fight somebody, you fight me. That guy.
Right. That makes sense that he's like, okay, let's get back to work.
He mentions to Carter in particular, when Carter says that he wanted to be just like him, I wonder if we're meant to see that Rip does too. And because he says something like, I've seen a lot of guys try.
Yeah.
But maybe he's one of those guys, because there's no patriarch now.
Right.
And it's not that he ever imagined himself on John's level. He can't. It's like impossible. It's like a leap for him to think of himself that way. But there are these people turning to him that need someone to say how it's okay to feel like Carter. And within Rip's, like we talked about, his narrow emotional bandwidth, this was as like Dick Van Dyke fatherly.
I did expect him to be a little more harsh on Carter because he has been that in the past. Like, what you crying about? Come on.
Yeah.
Get out of bed. So he was sort of nicer or more thoughtful than you would expect from the old Rip. But we've seen a lot of growth in him. We've seen John actually gift him part of the land, or it was a house or something, right? And so he was like, oh, he actually cares about me.
Yeah.
So there was that. You've seen Rip evolve into someone that actually is emotionally and sort of...
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Well,
they are related in family now, not just because of Beth, but I feel like because he took him in a little bit more with some of that gifting of the house, I believe it was. So it's like you expect more of a, your dad died or your close friend or your uncle or your cousin or someone that you spend a lot of time with, someone that you've grown up with, not just your boss.
To your point, perhaps Rip isn't ready to show us yet.
Agreed.
I mean,
yeah.
hard men don't just
Right.
cry on day one. Their wife is crying in their arms. Their adopted son is sulking in his bed. Your father figures, I don't know what, side piece, needs a ride to the airport. You've got a lot of stuff to do.
Yeah, that's true.
And so this guy, he maybe is coming. Maybe
I would hope so, is all I'm saying.
And maybe it won't be breaking down crying.
Right.
Maybe it'll be breaking people in half, you know.
I agree.
It's the way that he's going to let it out.
I agree.
Because they talk about it with Lloyd. Are we going to get in this fight? You can see he's itching. They just don't know who to fight.
Yeah. He's like, as soon as we know.
What are the rules of this fight? What's this fight look like? Who are these people we need to fight?
I agree. I think we'll see more of him dealing with it. I just, like I said, I was like, is this the next day? You're just already back to work. But you're right. That is sort of the other side of him.
There is comfort in your structure, you know, but it does, you're right. If you cling to it though, you don't get that moment to have that sense of loss.
Yeah.
But you're dying for the comfort too, you know, which of breaking horses, making sure the chores are done, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's coming.
I agree.
The emotion is going to pour out of him like lava from a volcano.
Either in tears or in someone else's blood.
Yeah, I think so. We mentioned a little bit about the idea of evolving and adapting Rip. He's not going to be a car salesman like you suggested. I'm so curious to see what it does look like. Maybe it's in Texas, maybe not. But shoot, do you have any like concept? What does it even look like? I mean, or is it like he's more John-like? He's his own guy, but he's fathering with Carter? Or
I feel like we're going to see Rip and Beth take a new path. Maybe it's in Texas, maybe not. But I think they are going to have to leave the actual Dutton Ranch and just make their own place in the world. I don't think he's going to try to step into John's role. Like you said, it just kind of doesn't seem possible. Like we're hinting at is like moving it to Texas or wherever, starting anew and having the same lifestyle, the same work that you love and the same person that you are. And we've seen a lot of different sides of Beth. We've seen her become a lot softer now being with Rip, and same from Rip. We've seen them both soften a little bit. So I would love to see that they just forge their own path and not try to keep fighting in this world that is just tearing them down over and over again. So I want to see him kind of move on.
Beth would be a big part of that. She's been working so long and hard at protect Daddy, protect the ranch, because that's what Daddy wants. I don't care about it that much, but it's what Daddy wants. And that's been her focus. And she even like said, when you die, I'm going to split this place up. When she was just talking, you know, hot about the idea that her dad would eventually die, I think she was thinking of some advanced age,
right?
Not right now. So she's still very much in, I'm going to keep doing what he wanted me to do mode.
Yeah.
But once she's done with that.
Yeah. I feel like once she feels like she's gotten revenge or gotten even, that she will want to move on as well. I don't think she cares about the ranch that much. It's kind of seems like a traumatic place for her, right? A lot of bad things have gone down there. She's not happy there. So I don't think she's tied to that actual piece of land. I think she wants to defend her father and make the people pay,
basically,
but then be done. I don't see her caring. Like you said, she knows even financially it makes a lot more sense to sell it and lease the land and put the airport in and make money and move on, you know.
But now it's emotional.
Yes,
and
now.
It's Jamie.
Yeah.
And
that's where it is.
Market equity is doing this to them. You're right.
Well, she's not going to walk away from a fight. I just think she's going to end the fight and then walk away.
the part of her strategy and calculating side of her is completely overwhelmed by the emotional side. Now, like we said, it's only been 2 days.
Yeah.
That's fine. It should be still an emotional time for her. But right now, it's just pouring out of her. The way she's harder than necessary on Summer. But we've already talked about that.
Fine.
But in the AG's office.
Yeah.
Is this the way you start the conversation, with just a hard slap?
It is, especially between Beth and Jamie. She's done it time and time again. There was one point she walks in the door and throws a cue ball or baseball or something like at his head as he's just sitting at his desk typing. So that is her MO. That's how she's going to approach Jamie every time. She has to let him know that she sees past anything that he could be trying to hide. And she's going to show him, okay, I know what you did. So a slap across the face I thought was mild.
Either Wes Bentley is a champion stage fighter or she's actually hitting him. I mean, could you imagine if that's the case and you're reading the script and you're Wes Bentley, you're like, Jesus Christ.
He's got to slap me
So he could have hit me like
3
4 times or
I know. He looked a little bit more like the Hunger Games game master in this episode, like the dramatic lines in his face and this like darkness about him.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it. I don't know. He looked a little bit more evil to me, but yeah, she comes in exactly as I expected her to. It just bugs me every time that Jamie doesn't defend himself at all. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't do it. You look guilty by not defending yourself. But then also, if you defend yourself, do you look guilty? You know, but he never even tries. But the fact that he wouldn't look her in the eye.
Yeah.
I agree that he could be like on the offensive by not even engaging with her, but at least look her in the eye and be strong about it.
Mm-hmm.
And defend yourself that way. Like, let her slap you, but stare her down. But for him to like look at the floor, not make eye contact, that bugs me. Come on, Jamie, you just killed your dad. Be that on the offense like you said you were.
He did have a chance. Even though he was getting slapped, there was a pause. That was his chance to look at her, and he didn't take it.
I wanted him to, because he set out on this mission. That was what he was like, okay, we're going to take control. I'm going to be on the offensive. I'm going to attack Beth before she has a chance to attack me. But he did that technically, but then he's not going to stand up for himself and be that strong person that he says he is. But this is how he always is. He always does something over the top, killing someone or a reporter. And then he's like timid and meek about it and like, oh, apologetic. Like, he's always kind of been this wishy-washy back and forth kind of guy
with a certain amount of bluster, you know.
Yeah.
Like, he's able to present very well, very impressively. He can get people to think that he might be a good governor, you know, just on looks and words. But when push comes to shove, you're totally right. He chokes the girl and throws her off the ravine, you know.
He just folds. I don't know.
Yeah, he will take the coward's way out. He won't look at his sister in the eye.
I don't know. I just feel like he should have stood there with his arms crossed, staring her down and be like, fine, slap me. Like, the fact that he didn't say anything, that could have been seen as strong, but it looked weak because of his body language.
There have been moments when they have tussled a little.
Yeah.
And it's because he felt righteous in what he was doing. That kind of implies he knows. He knows.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he was okay with the business aspect, but the killing John part of it, he's still not totally reconciled with, but he's kind of floating along with it because, you know,
Well, it happened. He has to.
Sarah keeps throwing herself at him, and that's very distracting.
Very distracting.
For now. Oh, I thought when she stood up, she was going to say, well, that about does it for this transaction.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks for helping us out. I'll check you later. I thought that was as legit a conversation as what ended up happening.
What ended up happening.
Anyhow, so that interaction with Sarah, have you ever met women, like we mentioned earlier, about, you said sisters getting into it, but these are grown women approaching or right around 40, I would say, right?
Yeah.
So completely in control of their own everything. And they're antagonizing each other. One is physical with the other, and the other one laughs like a schoolyard bully, right?
Right.
Have you ever seen such a thing in real life?
Of course not.
Okay.
That would be completely unhinged.
It came off unhinged,
Yes.
right? You're on the floor. You're dressed very well. You're in the Attorney General office for the state of Montana, and you're picking yourself up off the floor after being put in a chokehold, and you're laughing.
Laughing about it. You know, she's just trying to show you're not going to faze me. But I don't know. Maybe people act like that. I wouldn't see it in the Attorney General's office, maybe at the local bar.
Okay. Yeah.
That's a different setting. Maybe I've seen women throw their earrings aside on a Friday night kind of situation, but not in the office at 8 a.m. He just walked in the door.
Right.
So, no, I have not seen that.
All right. I mean, we've always known Beth is a unique person, but
I was about to say unhinged. You said unique. Whatever.
But Sarah, she might actually be something else, like diagnosable,
Diagnosable.
with something that should require medication. The way that she's sort of detached from people, I am positive if she manages to not get killed, I believe she will just leave Jamie.
Oh yeah,
she might just ghost him.
You're right.
Know?
Yeah,
and I think that'd be fine with her.
Yeah,
not even a second thought.
I agree. I don't think it would bother her at all.
After throwing herself at him, which, for all the women I've ever met would be an investment, something that they couldn't just be like, done,
Yeah.
Maybe that's just me. I don't know. That puts Sarah in a different category of person, sort of unpredictable for her.
And then to present herself as the prize.
Ah, yes.
The
spoils.
She is the thing that you have won.
Gross.
Yeah. And so it's a bit unhinged that she can just be so callous and calculated, and hopefully not a lot of people are like that in the world. I would hope.
I folded my fair amount of laundry at my own house.
Right.
And the amount of times that I've come across a bra with like grommets and shit all over it.
I was like, wow, where'd you buy that? That is not at Victoria's Secret.
And is it office wear?
She's wearing it under her like business casual dress.
Looks like a special mail order item.
Special item.
So she came for this buffet that she was going to offer to Jamie.
Maybe she just dresses like that every day. I don't know. Who knows?
Maybe that's you come to work, you come in your uniform. You never know what you're going to need.
Grommet bra, just
exactly
every day. I don't know. I think once the paperwork clears the desk, she's zipping that dress back up and she's out the door.
Right, back on the private jet and gone.
Yeah.
That interaction, for how odd it was, between Beth and Sarah does outline the difference of where they're at right now. I mean, there was a point where Beth also was super strategic, like with her previous boss, buying up all the land around the ranch and, trying to play these games based in knowledge of the law and business and the way things work. She was someone else's Sarah.
Yes, exactly.
Maybe not without the sexual component, but or not with.
I'm going to say she might have done that. Do you know
maybe
what I mean? She probably would have.
Maybe before she refocused on Rip.
Yeah.
But we don't know that for certain. We just know that she did have a very Hammer kind of role for someone else. But now that seems to be like not part of her game anymore at all.
Right.
Will the strategy that Sarah puts forward outpace Beth discovering her certainty and getting a plan together to settle the score and figure out who needs that score settled?
It doesn't sound like it.
It does not.
No,
it does not.
Because there's a lot of paperwork involved. They're gonna fight it. He said it might be up to a year. I think Beth could knock her off.
I mean, Beth
under a year.
Beth's been blown up.
Yeah.
There's the laughing of the schoolyard bully in the hallway, right? That doesn't realize who she's dealing with.
Right.
She thinks she's dealing with this adult child who's willing to lay hands on her in a public place. Okay. That is not who Beth is.
Right. I think she doesn't quite get it. And Jamie has said, like, you don't understand. It's Beth. But yeah, she has no context for that. So it's laughable to her that Beth is pissed off.
I don't think she's considered that her own safety, like when dealing with normal people in normal situations, the idea of like your physical safety being in danger often never comes to mind in normal situations, right?
Especially not in a business meeting.
Not at the state capitol, in the Capitol building. However, that is not the game that she's playing now. And she doesn't even know it.
Right.
She doesn't even know what game she started playing. And I look forward to her finding out.
Yeah. I think that's what we're all waiting for. It has to be the most epic part of the season, right?
I think we'll get there.
Yeah.
Like with next week's preview, we see Sarah just a little bit, but there is this shot of Jamie crying and he's on the phone with 911. Why would that be?
I don't know.
It's not him that's hurt. He's the one on the phone.
Okay, what if Sarah sort of says, okay, well, I've got what I need. I'm going to go. And he reacts because didn't he, out of emotion, he killed the reporter, right?
He could.
He slaps her upside the head with a baseball bat or something. I don't know. So she's bleeding and now he's crying. I could see that about him too, right?
There's that.
That's plausible.
It's plausible. Or now I'll give credit to Sheila. Sheila has brought up that we have not seen anything about his baby mama and son in a while. Now it's very dark to think that they would come into the game at this point. Care? But Beth does. Beth was super pissed when she found out that he had a son, and knowing their backstory, that she feels he took her ability to have children away from her, which in real ways he did. Jamie knows the game that's being played. Sarah doesn't know.
Yeah.
And previews are notoriously misleading. Just because he was on the phone crying and they were playing a 911 operator doesn't mean that those things were happening at the same time in the show. So, let's just be careful with what a preview shows us. I just don't think Sarah's going to survive.
Right. I don't either. Maybe not Jamie either. Well, let's skip over Kayce and go to Jamie then, since we're still in his office. Yeah.
I have in my notes here 2 things from the Montana State Constitution. Super fun reading.
That was exciting.
But they are about what happens to the office of the governor when it is vacated. And contrary to what Jamie says about a special election, at least in Article 6, Part 6, Section 14, Item Number 6, all that happens in Montana is the same thing that you think happens in every other state. The lieutenant governor immediately becomes governor.
Right.
That's
just how it is.
Steps right up.
That's why they have those lieutenant governors.
Exactly. And when the office of lieutenant governor becomes vacated, as you can see in Article 6, Part 6, Section 6, that the governor appoints a new lieutenant governor.
Okay.
And so the only thing that would trigger a special election, which I don't have in my notes here, is if both of those offices were empty. If the state had nobody,
right,
then they'd find somebody to run things. I forget who it is. It's like the Secretary of State or something like that. But then they would have an election to straighten out both offices.
Right. So at the beginning of Jamie's workday, he has a meeting on the schedule with the lieutenant governor.
He does.
So, I mean, why is this even a conversation? He should know the law. He knows what's going to happen. And he's telling Market Equities there could be a special election. I could be governor. Nah.
So I think that's just TV magic, just fudging it so that.
Yeah, because nobody really cares about the Montana state
right.
law.
Right. They're not going to look up Part 6, Section 6 of the Montana Code.
I mean, you did. But.
Yeah. Well, that's why they come to us.
Right. So we can tell them.
Yeah, we can tell them. So in the show, if Jamie lives that long, apparently there's a special election, but in reality, there would not be.
Womp womp.
I mean, he could hope to be appointed lieutenant governor and then, tell Sarah to take out the governor.
That's a lot of work.
Right. Got 4 more episodes to go. That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
All right. So Jamie sets to work basically doing all the stuff that Beth said that he would. Mm-hmm. Taking apart what John put in place, removing the blocks that John created when he was governor.
Reinstating the lease.
Did any of this surprise you?
No.
Disappoint you? Is there anything about Jamie in episode 10 / part 2, episode 2, that didn't disappoint you?
No.
I mean, it sounded like you were a little enthralled with his looks, but that might have been it.
I like that he looked a little evil instead of... He looked a little evil, but he acted cowardly, as he always does. So no, I was not surprised.
He's an interesting looking guy.
Yeah. He's
got these cheekbones and he's got the light eyes and the grays coming in just right. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, he's a handsome guy.
He kind of looks like a character, though, Mm-hmm. He has his cheekbones are so defined. So
sort of a Jafar.
Yes. Okay, yes. So, yes, he has that sort of evil sorcerer look. A handsome man at the same time. But I don't know. I liked that he looked a little bit more evil. He just killed his dad. So, kind kind of goes with the plot, but then he acted just as we expected him to act. So
that combination of
not surprised.
light eyes and defined eyebrows will continue to get him work in evil roles just forever. Like the game master for Hunger Games. He was not a nice man.
No.
I forget his name. It was something silly, but yeah, not a nice guy. Okay, so leading up to this moment, Jamie has always appeared as if he had the ranch's best intentions for its longevity in mind. It's just that he had a different path for getting there. Like using the land for people that would just pay the ranch rent and all these other kinds
Make
of
money.
income. Right. That would support the cattle ranching.
Which is what his dad seemed to care most about. So I think all along he's been saying, like, you can have the ranch. You just have to be financially smart about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think all along he was trying to preserve what his dad wanted. He just didn't agree with the way John wanted to preserve it as if in a museum.
Right. Yeah. But in this meeting with market equities, it sounded a lot more like, yep, slice it and dice it. Let's
move on.
Yeah. And the preview says something like, my siblings won't sell, so we might have to take it. Now, this is starting to sound vindictive and more like, screw the ranch. I don't care if there's any more ranch left. Tear down the lodge. I don't get that. This is the mentality I'm getting from. He's not saying these things. But now it does seem like there's a shift where he's not as concerned about that Dutton legacy. There's some way to capitalize on the market equities affiliation, whether it's through governorship or some personal.
And like logically, that's what everyone should want, is the value out of the Dutton Ranch, and then go do with it what you will, right?
That's how Jamie sees it.
Yeah.
But he sees value in a different way.
Exactly.
Summing up Jamie, at this point, given the way that he is firmly in the grasp of Sarah Atwood, do you think that he is fully just a victim of manipulation? Or do you think, like we just mentioned, he is seeing the path forward for the ranch in a different way than he used to? So is that the destiny that he is taking control of for himself, and Sarah is just enabling that, and he's totally
like
in
letting
on it?
her, yeah.
Or no, actually, he's just doing what Sarah says because he has the power to do it, and he wants to, impress this lady.
I don't know if it said he wants to impress the lady. I think it's the latter. I think he just wants what he wants out of it. But I think he truly sees Sarah as someone who's interested in him and wants to be with him, just like he did with Christina and all the other women that have come along and manipulated him. And I think he doesn't see it like that. Do you know what I mean? I think he thinks okay, she likes me and she happens to work for this company that's going to be very beneficial for us to all work together.
So then he thinks he's controlling himself, but he is.
That's my take
not.
on it. Yeah.
But he is not.
I don't think he's playing Sarah. Do you know what I mean? I don't think he's thinking, okay, well, I'm going to get what I want. She's going to get what she wants. And I'm going to use her for sex. I don't think he thinks that.
It is plausible to think that he.
Yeah. Think that he. Okay. We're getting a little tongue twister here.
But the way that he's acting and just the fact that we're in on kind of the omniscient aspect of what Sarah was told to do, why Carolyn Warner brought her in,
right,
lets us know the chances of that being true are so slim.
Right.
Every person wants to think that they are controlling their own destiny.
Or not being used.
And not being used. So, but in reality, he is. I don't know how to
I don't know if he thinks that or doesn't think that. It doesn't seem like he does, but I mean, I would hope past experiences would tell him that these not all women can be trusted.
She just showed up and wanted me instantly.
Yeah.
My God.
I must be a god.
All I had to do was just get my father killed. Speaking of getting father killed, but looking at it from the opposite side of things, let's go look at Kayce.
Mm-hmm.
Kayce, did you notice the moment when he switched out of passive mode? We had talked about he'd been just sort of needing to be led to conclusions last week. I don't think that's true now.
When Beth called and said, I looked him in the eye.
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't even look me in the eye.
Mm-hmm.
I saw it with my own two eyes. Then I think that was the moment that he switched. And he's like, okay, if you're not even going to defend yourself, if you're not even going to say it's not true, all right, let's do this then.
And he
immediately switches.
The acting, actually, that Luke Grimes did right there was actually, I mean, He's always played this part super well. I don't know him for a lot of different roles.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen him say that he didn't come into the role with a lot of like cowboy kind of background, which is tremendous that he seems to inhabit the role of a cowboy.
He looks like a cowboy.
So completely. You can see that he wants to cry, but he will not.
Mm-hmm.
You can see that he does bite down on his lips so much that he makes it bleed kind of substantially. And he just, like Monica mentions, he just goes cold.
Yeah.
And
she knows.
It's like the look in his eye. And this is acting. It's a very subtle thing that a capable actor can do when their eye, the way that they look changes.
Yeah. The look on their demeanor.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And this is now operator Kayce.
You've activated the sleeper agent.
Right. My God, it's Jason Bourne.
Yes.
Right? And yeah, so I think that's what happened. The man that Kayce called, we haven't seen this guy before, right?
No.
Okay.
Not that I know.
Early opinions on this guy?
Well, I think he's just a connection. I think he's going to get Kayce to the right people. I don't think he's going to show up next to him and storm the gates.
Kayce might need that. I mean, there are previews of Kayce looks like he's taking matters into his own hands. Are these dream sequences? I don't know. Perhaps. But there's definitely some shots of Kayce looking very serious. Very serious coming up.
Very serious.
Just offhand, the way that he called him Frogman suggests to me that he might not have been a Navy SEAL himself, but another kind of operator like a Ranger or Delta or something like that. Just a guess.
I would say I don't know enough about that to comment. I don't know what
SEALs are Navy, and they're trained to dive. So that's where the Frogman thing. So if he was calling another guy Frogman, just maybe if someone can correct me on my supposition here, I'm happy to learn. As a man, I'm supposed to know military stuff, even though I was never in the military.
Are you?
So I'm happy to know more about it.
He just came back from out of the country. He seems like
putting guns in a safe that's full of other guns.
Yes, yeah.
So
seems like a serious kind of guy.
I believe he is what's called a private military contractor.
Mm-hmm.
These are guys that aren't in the Army, don't actually have the authority of any state,
right? But
still are hired and
highly trained enough to execute these
and paid well.
Yeah.
To go put their lives on the line in places that are dangerous on behalf of a company.
I was very happy to Google and learn that whatever company he mentioned out of Houston, Texas is not real.
I Googled it too.
I was like, excuse me, who? What?
Yes. MRS out of Houston. I looked it up. I mean, if it exists, it is not on Google.
Yeah, it's not on Google.
Yeah.
So I did. I was like, wait, what? Houston?
Yeah.
Who?
Yeah. Going back an episode, I mean, I don't know the Houston skyline from the helicopter's view, but that didn't look like any building I recognize out of Houston. Remember when Sarah met with Grant, quote unquote Grant?
Oh, right. Okay. Oh, yeah.
So
no, I didn't recognize it immediately. Yeah.
No. So, but he knows where to start poking around.
Yeah, exactly. He knows who to call.
Thing. And they did give a little context, like this would be an expensive job, a very expensive job.
Right? $50 million. What?
$50 million.
Is that how much it costs to off John?
A governor, a very public figure, a guy who
I have no idea. Like, why would I even know a context for that number? But I don't. But that just was a surprising number. I was like, okay.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot.
It sounds like Sarah Atwood or Market Equities came up with that number on their own without blinking an eye. They just were able to put that down as office supplies on the expense report.
If you're buying an airport, that's probably $1 billion or something, right? Like we know that our own local airport, Houston Intercontinental, just needed a facelift. Just a facelift. It was already there. They already had the airport, and that was $1 billion. You know?
Really?
Yeah. You don't want to go there. It's terrible. The driving conditions are awful.
Don't go to the airport.
No.
It's not worth it.
No. Spare your own life and do something better with it than go to our airport. But yeah, so 50 million in the scope of $1 billion. It's what?
It's
5%.
It's a line item.
It's not. It's it's a small change.
I'm nervous about Kayce.
Yes. Well, Monica is also very worried.
I just feel like this is a repeating theme with them. They get happy, they get settled, they find their happy medium between her world and his family's world, and then something happens. And I'm just like, damn it. They literally are still putting the roof on the cabin, and he's back at the main ranch. Like, already. It just was such a disappointment in terms of like their life together. I was like, come on, really? It's been like a day since they settled. They moved their furniture back in. And for her to offer to go with Kayce to the main house was really endearing. And I loved seeing that for her, but then it just made me sad because they're like back at the main house again. So I was like, dang it, so close.
Well, that's like you mentioned, it's like this scale, this balance that they keep in their relationship of how much Dutton, how much Monica, basically.
Yeah.
And she's willingly right now letting that scale go.
I know.
But if it goes too far,
She gets,
then the one potential logical end is that one preview that shows Kayce walking up with the hoodie and hiding a gun.
Yeah.
What does that play out? Is that a real thing that's going to happen? If that happens, then they are on the run at best.
Right.
You know?
Like I said last episode, she doesn't like that side of Kayce.
Mhm.
She moves out. She starts hanging out with some guy from the college or whatever. So she doesn't want that. She doesn't like that. So as far as their relationship and their family and Tate, I'm very sad. I'm very like, no, come on, really? But I liked seeing her supportive and her coming to Tate and saying like, listen, this is on us. We're going to have to keep him with us. We got to keep him talking. We got to keep him here. We got to keep him present. So at least it's top of mind that she's like going to fight for him and fight alongside of him, not literally, but just to keep him grounded in their family. But it makes me sad for their storyline that once again, you know, his father comes in between what they've built together. So,
Well, and that, what you mentioned about Tate's role
Yes.
in keeping Kayce centered on that scale, you know, they have that short conversation in the field. And I mean, this is a very elegant way to see what Tate's interest level is without applying any pressure on him
Yeah.
in
like, what did you want to do?
taking his inheritance, you know,
Yeah.
and what he wants to do with it without saying, I mean, one approach would be all this, it's all yours now. I'll help best I can, but you know,
Good luck.
at the end of the day, you're the boss.
Yeah.
That would be one approach. But Kayce was like, if you want to be a fly fisherman guide, that's fine too.
Yeah. Tell me where what we're fighting for. Tell me where we're going to go with this, and I'll go with you.
So in a way, now this is a lot to put on a kid because this kid is what, 15?
Yeah.
Because he couldn't drive at the beginning of the season when Monica was driving to deliver the baby.
Yeah.
So he's still a young boy.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, he's probably going to need, at least as a character, maybe not as a human, but as a character, if he demonstrates that he does need his dad there doing their best to make a go of running this ranch, then maybe that's what Tate does to help balance that internal scale for Kayce, so he doesn't go in full killbot mode because he knows that his son is there.
Yeah. That he wants to preserve some of the future for Tate. He can't just be on the run. He can't do something so drastic and
yes,
explosive that he has to then hide for the rest of his life or whatever. You know, he has to keep it reined in for his son.
That's all I mean.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
It's a lot to put on a kid, but it might be what's put on this kid.
Yeah, I am. I'm nervous for Kayce. I'm nervous to see if he can control that or how far he goes into that sort of kill mode, like we just said, or whatever. It's just a little scary in terms of him and Monica and Tate's future.
It's interesting having the Duttons have two killers on their team.
Yeah.
You know, Rip and Kayce, they will kill you.
Yeah.
But their approaches are very different. Think of the awesome scene when Rip saves Beth and he just bowls through that glass wall, gets shot, doesn't stop. I mean, that is the most masculine thing I've ever seen, right? But that's not what Kayce's going to do.
Yeah.
You know, Kayce is capable of sneaking in.
Yes.
You'll never hear him coming. It just makes the mind spin with all the cool possibilities of seeing Ellis from Market Equities take about 7 shots before he knows that he's dead.
Yeah.
You know, will that make me happy? Yeah, probably would.
Yeah.
I don't know what my total point is with having those two guys on the team, except it's just exhilarating what could happen.
Yeah, it's a world of possibilities as far as what they could do.
Well, looking forward, at the very, very bottom of that document, you'll see that I just have a few sentences on the shots from the preview happening next week. Previews are misleading, but we did hear Jamie say something about taking the ranch from his siblings. We did discuss that does seem to outline that he is now on a different path than preserving the ranch for a Dutton legacy. It's more like, nah, I don't care. Split it up, whatever, for the state. I'll just declare eminent domain and make it state land. This is what it sounds like when a state official says take it. That's kind of what they mean, Then we have the Jamie crying on the phone. I can't wait to see what that's all about. Now, Linnell is someone who didn't appear at all in this episode, and we were questioning whether or not she'll come on board as an ally for Beth and Team Dutton because she doesn't want to believe in this suicide story. She doesn't have any other evidence, but she doesn't want to believe that. That's not the man she knew.
Well, we've seen her care about John and be connected to him. So.
And she's also a senator. So she does have some influence, some ability to say and get things done. And she says something like, be careful what you're doing and who you're, what you're doing and who you're undoing it for.
Too little too late.
Yeah.
Miss Linnell.
So we'll see what that means. But I think our relationship as viewers with Linnell is not done yet.
That's good. I like her.
Interesting that they showed
on the show.
Clara, because Clara's just an assistant. But and to a man that's not there anymore. So her role moving forward, who knows? But
I could live without her. She's
interesting.
Fine. Yeah.
All right. So there is a scene where a door gets kicked open. That was pretty exciting. It looked like since the flashlight was up and the arms were up, that's a very cop-like.
It's an invasion.
But that's kind of the way cops do it.
Yeah.
And the door looked like the governor residence. It didn't look like Jamie's house, and it didn't look like the ranch house. I don't know where else it would be, but we don't have anybody of interest in the residence anymore, so who knows? I don't know. I'm looking forward to see what that is. I might be wrong about being Jamie's door, but I thought Jamie's door was sort of in a little hall, and this was not.
He had like a short entryway.
And this was not. This was not that. And then there's this big scene of Kayce with a medical examiner. They're at someone's postmortem.
Yeah.
I think we're to assume it's John's, but he's asking about what would you be looking for if you thought it was homicide?
Right.
And sort of the ME's going to probably say things like she's very sure that it's suicide. I'm sorry about your dad, but I'm sure. So we're going to have to sit through all that before she does go, well, that's not right.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So Kayce's not just going to want to go kill his brother right away, but like we said, he's now switched modes.
Yeah, he's on a mission now
to on-off. There's
figure
no gray.
out what happened and then do something about it. I think Beth would just kill Jamie tomorrow if she had the opportunity with no questions asked. She doesn't care whether that's true or not. She thinks it's true. Whereas Kayce, I think, is a little bit more like, okay, let's figure this out. Let's see what happened. Who... like Rip said, who are we fighting exactly? I think that's more where Kayce is. For me, this sort of in the back of my mind, this whole episode, or the last two episodes, what we've been talking about and what's happening to the ranch, and like, let's think of it as like an estate sale, right? Like the patriarch, he has passed away, right? There's we can't do anything about that now. It's gone. We're going to have a fight. We're going to like kill some people over it. Or we could just like, everybody has a place here. Like, don't you want to divide up the grandfather clock and the china and get what you
like
have.
Most families, right?
Yeah. Like you can get your peace with it and peace, P-E-A-C-E, peace. And you can move on, right? Beth and Rip can do that. Kayce and Monica could do that. It could happen. I don't know what Jamie's piece of that would be, but he could move on too. So it's like, I'm sort of seeing like, let's just divide and have what we have out of this valuable legacy that was left, because it's no longer there. There is no more like, it's not going to be Kayce who wants to be John Dutton. I don't think Tate wants to be the next John Dutton. We just talked about in this episode that Rip doesn't really have that role. This is what happens, right? When both the grandmother and the grandfather and that circle has passed on, like you form a new circle. You move to a different thing. So I kind of want to see some of those things play out, not physically like the china and the grandfather clock, but the land and the value and the cattle, and like, let's be able to carry on in our family, but on our own paths, you know?
The emotions are so raw and hot. 'Cause
Yeah.
we're only a day or two out at this point that no one's even considered that.
Right. I think that we could, though. Like, you know, we all could just take a deep breath. Not everybody's got to die. But that wouldn't make for a very good TV show, now, would it?
No, I'm afraid not.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just am seeing like there's a future for each one of these characters if they don't all have to die. You know, like let's not just kill each other.
I mean, in a strange way, it would be in keeping with everything Beth has ever wanted.
Yeah, she's just said, like, let's...
If she was just like, Jamie, if you want all of Montana, you're going to have it.
Yeah.
I'm leaving and I will never see you again.
Yeah.
That's it.
Do you think that Beth would be satisfied, Beth/Kayce, with just killing Sarah? Is this...
Kayce doesn't even know Sarah exists.
I know, but he will, right? In theory. Are they going to be satisfied with someone dying, or does it have to be Jamie? Does it have to be that?
I mean, if you think about season 1, episode 1, John was not in Kayce's life. They lived near each other, but...
He didn't ever really meet Tate that much.
Right.
You know, wasn't around him.
No. And John inserted himself into the boy's life, and he rebuilt a relationship with Kayce. And the end of the first part of season 5, he's asking Kayce to run the ranch.
Yeah.
In lieu of him
being governor.
So this is huge, from we have no contact to I need you to play me while I'm not here. Given all that, and thinking about what that loss means not only to him but to Tate, and seeing that there's this person responsible for that, a way to kind of focus the way that you're feeling about it. If they contain the story of the next 4 episodes to something like that week, then it's a lot more plausible that heat, that anger would still be there.
Yeah.
You know, if it was like, no, it's like 9 months from now, I don't know. The excitement would definitely be a lot lower, and your intensity about how you're feeling about it would be a lot less. And so I see it needing to happen very fast if it's going to be this fatal solution.
Right. But I'm asked, does it need to be Jamie, or does it just need to be someone held accountable? Kayce doesn't
hate Jamie.
Yeah, he doesn't want it to be Jamie.
They grew up as brothers. They were different people.
Yeah.
I'm sure that they had squabbles, disagreements, and things like that. But at the end of the day, he never knew about the situation with Beth. And so they just did brother things together their entire lives.
Yeah.
Didn't know about the adoption. No one did. So, yeah, he doesn't want to think this about his own brother.
Right. I agree. He doesn't. I don't think he wants to kill Jamie over this.
I don't think he does. But if he finds out about Sarah, though, you could even twist it so that Jamie offers up Sarah.
Oh.
Because that's not out of his character. But he kind of
would do that, though, wouldn't he?
Yes, he would.
Yes, he would.
Yes, he would. I will give you this person if it gets
me
out of trouble.
Yeah.
She talked me into it. She wore the grommet bra.
I was about to say it. She tricked me.
All right, so that's what we got looking forward, kind of settling on Kayce's level of anger, who he's going to focus it on, continuing this investigation. The Cowboys are going to continue to just be a very slow part of the story.
Sitting in Texas.
This was character. This was a lot of character stuff this week. So I think 4 episodes left. We're
ready for more explosions next week.
Got to move the plot. All right. So if you like this podcast, please remember to rate, review it, and subscribe to it. Leave us a rating, leave us a comment on iTunes, especially so that other people can find the podcast and listen to it as well. It makes it easier to find the more ratings and comments we have. So please do that for us. In some configuration, we'll see you next week.
This is Steph.
And this is Paul. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening. This has been an original Pod Clubhouse production. Pod Clubhouse is a podcast network dedicated to encouraging collaboration among podcasters and friends to bring a fresh voice and diverse perspective on a wide array of content. Please visit and leave a comment for us at podclubhouse.com. Rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast feeds on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find us at Pod Clubhouse. Our DMs are always open, and we'd love to hear from you.
Pod Clubhouse.